Hi, everybody. It is an honor for me to be here today. I come from Canada, and I'm super excited to have this opportunity to share my enthusiasm for everything that's happening at the Academy Software Foundation from the lens of a researcher. And I have to tell you, I've been at the Linux Foundation for 2 years, and in my very first conversation with Jim Zemlin, he was effusive about the Academy Software Foundation community and so excited to tell me about this community as it stands out among all the Linux Foundation project communities because it truly is unique. It's magical. And we talk about the Academy Software Foundation all the time because what is created in this community is so tangible. It is so relatable. You're making magic. When I was telling my children I was joining this organization called the Linux Foundation, we support open source software. I was able to say, all those movies we've been watching all of these years, Toy Story and Finding Nemo and Monsters Inc. and you name it, Harry Potter. All of that stuff is created with open source software that is nurtured by people who are passionately working together across their individual studios. It's a really great story. And so this is at the end of the day what Linux Foundation research and the motion pictures industry has in common. We're storytellers of a different kind. A lot of the research that we do at Linux Foundation, the stories are rooted in empirical data. Maybe it's survey data, but it's also qualitative data where we bring in the central characters of an open source ecosystem, the leaders, the people who are making things happen, who are convincing their legal counsel and are convincing decision makers in their organization why open source is a really powerful methodology and framework and why it should be nurtured and how they can get involved. And what we did at LF Research was tell the story of the Academy Software Foundation and the central characters within it. And so this time last year, we were in the final stages of putting the report together, and I'm so excited to share with you the people behind that story who helped make this research possible. And when we see people in research and we hear about their journeys, the ideas become really sticky and people relate to it. It's not abstract. Sometimes survey data can be really abstract and it's not personal. But the movies and the story collaboration in this context gets really personal and people remember it. We talk about the Academy Software Foundation. I did yesterday. I was at the Linux Foundation Legal Summit in San Francisco yesterday, talking to legal officers from across our project member organizations in all industries, telling them about the special work that takes place at the Academy Software Foundation and its formation story and where it's going and why this is a model of open source collaboration within an industry. So we tell all kinds of stories, and yes, there is lots of conflict. We're trying to describe what is taking place across open source communities all over the world, and what are the regional dynamics, what are the variances in continent, in city, in individual regions, and how does Europe differ from Asia, and so on. We look at open source project communities along technology horizontals. What are the challenges for a blockchain ecosystem or cloud native? Which technologies are accelerating and which may be maturing or potentially even on the decline? And we look at big picture issues as well. We call these ecosystem-wide issues, whether it's what's happening in the world of standards, what's happening in the world of diversity, equity, and inclusion. What are the pain points for climate change? Essentially, how are we making the world a better place through open source projects? Research helps to describe both the conflict and the opportunity. And how do we use the data to inform decision making and activations? Where do we prioritize resources, and how do we address the security of software supply chains? Big picture issues. And these are complex. When we can drill them down and distill them in a nice report, that's what we love to do. And so here we are, an industry organization like the Academy Software Foundation. I think that what we've created in our inaugural research study is a showpiece of industry-specific collaboration where competitive organizations have chosen to come together, share talent, share intellectual property, collaborate so that everybody gets a win-win. It's compelling and inspiring, and we talk about it all the time. Because if this industry can do it, maybe the cosmetics industry can do it. Maybe the fashion industry can do it. Because fashion's becoming digitally accelerated as well. If you look at Zara, that is one of the most high-tech fashion companies, who's not yet part of the open source community. This organization, the Academy Software Foundation, is paving the way for others to model this kind of collaboration. And so I bring you to this beautiful showpiece report, Open Source and Entertainment, published last March. And as you can see, beautiful cinematography from the film Dune, image courtesy of DNAG, Warner Brothers. We were very, very grateful to have the permission of our community to use so many images in this research report that would help us tell our story and tell the story of this community. And an image really is worth 1,000 words. I know this image lit up Jim Zemlin incredibly. He was a big fan of Dune as a child, and was thrilled to see the Dune cinematography on the cover of our report. We worked with veteran journalist Barbara Robertson, who has been covering computer-generated effects for computer graphics for the better part of 2 decades. And she painstakingly interviewed a very willing group from the Academy Software Foundation. And through this qualitative research process, brought the story of the Academy Software Foundation's formation, its current project ecosystem, and where it was going next, addressing some of the pain points for the Academy Software Foundation as well. I invite you all to download the report and discover it for yourself and share it. This is a resource for you to use. And I hope that you take advantage of this opportunity to share the report, to discover the art of the possible. And I do love the fact that, collaboration is not just about creating code. Research is a team sport too, and everybody here came together in a meaningful way to create a new kind of value, and this report's that value. And so, to use David Moran's words, for those of you already participating in our activities, the report's a record. For those of you who are new, and I understand there are many of you in the room today who are not familiar necessarily with the work of the Academy Software Foundation, this is a primer to the whys and the wherefores and the opportunities that are created through this collaboration framework. For everyone, it is a springboard, and this is just the beginning. It should get all of our creative sides going and realizing the art of the possible. Where can we go from here? So a few takeaways from the research. It was very clear in discussions with the stakeholders that this community fosters collaboration. It is a place for companies, for individuals to come together and coalesce around tools and standards that everybody needs. It's neutral. And it is really important for the development of open standards to make sure that the tools that were open source but risking potentially not being the de facto standards in the industry without dedicated support around those tools and without sharing the development and responsibility and care for those tools. So this is a place where common software problems are solved, where conflict is real, but it gets resolved, and many people get to share in that resolution. We learned that the Academy Software Foundation is steadfast. It provides infrastructure support. It is extremely dedicated and focused to the motion pictures industry and solving problems specific to the industry itself and the community involved. It recognizes the needs for tooling that are aimed at artists. And once these base layer technologies are created, what can we do next that is even more specific to art creation? Ultimately, it means that through coming together, no projects die in the vine, that there is support and a nurturing community. From an economics point of view, the Academy Software Foundation was demonstrated to be incredibly valuable from an economic point of view. We're creating valuable tools. There is real economic value in open source software. If people have to pay for instances, costs get out of control. There's value in sharing human capital as well. It is very hard to make these projects independently, so it makes a lot of sense to work together. What makes this report beautiful and special were the contribution of images, the permission to use these images, such as this from DreamWorks, seen using the OpenVDB project in Crudes. It's a page-turning, captivating demonstration of the work that goes on. Similarly, from Disney Studios, the contribution of the Moana beach scene, not just for the report itself, but as an example of an organization open sourcing a scene like this for creators to use is really incredibly inspiring. And finally, the D&I working group that you've heard about was really important in helping us direct this research in a meaningful way. When we set out to create this project, we were thinking more about the formation story alone. And the D&I working group got involved and said, wait a second, if we only tell the story of the past, we don't have an inclusive voice because a lot of the key stakeholders were men. And there are opportunities to include and attract a more diverse community. And so that influenced the direction of the research. We chose not to be completely retrospective, but looking at the present goals of the organization and looking at the future challenges and addressing the need to have a diverse community at the foundation. And so I'd like to now take an opportunity to showcase some of the insights that the leaders who participated in the research project, what they have to say. Really, the Academy Software Foundation is a place for creating shared value. And open source is the forum for doing just that. Ultimately, nobody has to go it alone. There's tremendous support across the foundation to share ideas, to become better. Nobody has all the best talent within their organization. We can benefit from the mistakes made by somebody else or the innovations made by somebody else. And in doing so, once we get some foundational problems solved, we can then be more ambitious, and the way we do that is together. We can also move toward innovating higher up the stack, embracing what's commoditized, some of the earlier projects of the Academy Software Foundation, OpenVDB, OpenColor.io, OpenPXR, commoditizing some base layer open source project tools, and then seeing where we can go next that maybe is a little bit more specific to animation and filmmaking initiatives. This is a community of purpose-driven work. There's a lot of passion in what goes on here and tremendous amount of pride at what is being created and the art of the possible. And because the foundation is here, the door is open to making that next magical thing. Whether it's a movie or maybe it's more projects and more tooling. All are welcome. It's an incredibly open space. Yes, organizations are vitally important for providing resources, but anyone can contribute. And I speak to young people who are interested in programming, and they don't know that this community exists, but they've all been to the movies. And I say there's a role for you to get involved, jump in, hear the project communities, find a project that interests you. It's open, so spread the word. And hey, keep up the good work. There's a lot to be proud of, and the foundation's coming on 5 years this August. I can't imagine where we'll be 5 years from now. But I think everybody's on to something very, very special. I mentioned briefly before the economic value. In the words of Andrew Pierce from DreamWorks, it was unequivocal that if organizations were paying for individual instances, how costs get out of control. This is not a philanthropic exercise. Open source software has an economic value, and it requires nurturing to get the most out of that opportunity. There's tremendous social value also to being part of this community and advocacy, the kind of advocacy that Carol Payne shows. The developers, the Academy and Software Foundation, are passionate advocates, and it's wonderful to have a window into their intrinsic motivation for the work that they're doing. Their commitment is real, their dedication is real, and it's a community of tremendous enthusiasts. We're not in the Wild West anymore. This is a community that is maturing with 3 new projects this year compared to when this report was just published. Again, we're on a trajectory of going from strength to strength. And is there conflict? Yes, you bet there is. There's conflict all across open source communities. Are we a diverse enough community? No, we're not. And why is that important? Because people with varied backgrounds, when we include people with varied backgrounds, we simply get better technologies. It's real. And how do we go about making our communities more inclusive? How do we go about encouraging developers from underrepresented groups to participate and feel welcome? And the work of the D&I committee is hugely dedicated to ensuring that we have the most possible diverse community going forward. And yes, it's groundbreaking. You're working on some incredible tools that are foundational, and great things are coming from the work that's taking place here. It is groundbreaking across the Linux Foundation. It is a shining star, really, of the art of the possible. And through transparent open source tools, there is an opportunity for individual recognition. Who are the largest committers? Who are the leaders? It's a place to be recognized. Maybe it's a place to be recruited from and advance your career. But there is a lot going on, and what's exciting is that through open source, talent is recognized and celebrated. And so this is your resource as a community. The report that we created is available under Creative Commons. It's free to share. You can publish it on your website. You can distribute it to whomever you want to do. Please use it. And any of these graphics that you have seen today, convince your boss. Have a conversation. Let the report be a tool that facilitates dialogue. And by the way, the Academy Software Foundation report isn't the only tool available at your disposal. We have an incredible group of resources that you can use for your internal purposes to build your project communities, whether it's about how to release internal code into a new open source project, whether it's around um, mentorship programs and how and why to kick something off, the role of the open source program office, and so on. So I do invite you to discover the library of resources available to you to help you achieve your overall objectives. And finally, though I've spoken a lot about qualitative studies and the stories that came through the interview process, I welcome all of you to please join us in the survey work that we do. It's vitally important to have perspectives across all industries, to have, as Jim said earlier, feedback. Research is a mechanism for you to be heard, for you to share your opinion and share your knowledge. So please do get involved, and I want to thank you very much for your attention.